Caribbean update on health, metabolic health, what we're doing, and how we are trying to change the perspective on the way we take care of ourselves, the Caribbean people. Now, on to like yesterday or in episode 1, we looked at the concept of putting food in your mouth, food, and chewing here where carbohydrates may become glucose. So fundamentals, we have to understand carbohydrates would convert into glucose or maybe fructose. If it is a fruit or even a vegetable, you could get some fructose there, and it could convert, if it is milk-based substance, to I think lactose. So this is fundamental. Carbohydrates should convert into that. Now the other parts of the screen would say, well, why is it so bad to, or why is it so terrible to eat refined carbohydrates? So in our discussion, we use the word whole carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates, and we learned that refined carbohydrates digests a lot in the mouth, which means you have a lot of glucose molecules going from the mouth, staying in the mouth, being in the mouth. Of course, streptococcus mutans and other bacteria would start eating those that stick around your teeth, whereas whole carbohydrates breaks up mechanically in your mouth and goes down into the stomach, down to the esophagus, passing to the sphincter muscle of the hair, and getting as whole pieces of food into the stomach. And here it just gets, well, of course, all food, as we said, all food comes down with bacteria, and because there is a good pH level in the stomach, which is very acidic, it kills these bacteria that comes with your carbohydrates. And so the food then leaves the stomach, goes into the duodenum, gets wet with the bile and the pancreatic juices, which joins up into one level here. Bile coming from the gallbladder, pancreatic juices coming from the pancreas, coming into one duct, and then you have that carbohydrates starting the real digestive process, where we have little bits of molecules called glucose, fructose, galactose, whatever the actose names are, monosaccharides. They are coming into the small intestine, moving along the way. More and more enzymes are breaking them down for about 20 whatever, whether it's 20 feet or 20 meters, I don't know, and it comes here and they get absorbed along the villi up into this red thing called the hepatic portal vein, and up they go to the liver. So that's the liver here. Now conceptually, that is carbohydrates, and the challenge with the refined carbohydrates is, simply put, that the molecules of glucose is actually being released in your mouth, going down into your esophagus or whatever the word is, and it comes into the acidic stomach, where the bacteria are getting the substrate, which is the glucose molecules, to eat, and the fructose molecules to eat, along with carbohydrates having the effect of not calling on the gastric juices to become very acidic. So you have the gastric juices, which supposed to be very acidic at pH level 1 to 2.5, very acidic carbonic acid, now turning down to maybe 3, between 3 to 5, allowing those pathogens not to die because the acidity level has been disappeared. No acid means pathogens could survive. So things like H. pylori, E. coli, salmonella, they survive, and not only do they survive the gastric juices, they also survive because they are getting the substrate, glucose molecules. So it's not really the carbohydrates like your plantain, your fig, your bulgur, your dashings, that would cause the overgrowth of those. We have to be careful with those two, or not careful, be controlled, of course, moderate with it. Nobody in the Caribbean overeats those things anyhow. But the challenge is when we eat the refined carbohydrates, which we generally get from, let's say, bread. Bread is a very highly refined carbohydrate source. It digests in the mouth, brings that substrate into the stomach, and eating bread or the bread-based diet, which is something that we have in the Caribbean, leads us to have low stomach acid and leads us into this growth of what we are studying largely, which is lipopolysaccharides. So you'd hear me speak about LPS, lipopolysaccharides, which is when the bacteria start living in your gut, and they start saying to themselves, let's protect ourselves because the hurricane Beryl or the hurricane whatever is coming. So we need to protect ourselves. So they start by protecting themselves by building around themselves a little bubble called an umbrella called LPS. Again, they use the same glucose to do that, and then afterwards they congregate and they build a bigger bubble called a biofilm, and then they build a stronger biofilm, which is called the extracellular matrix. So all these substrates here, they are using glucose as their way to protect themselves all the way in your gut here. And all that is being done because you are supposed to be conscious of the type of carbohydrates you are putting in your mouth. And the more refined the carbohydrates, the easier it is for you to digest using the salivary enzymes, and that is causing you to have glucose in your stomach. Now, the rule of thumb is glucose should be digesting from that part of the small intestine after the duodenum. So it's not really at the top of the small intestine, it is after. So you see that white part I'm showing you here, that's the small intestine. In fact, the scientific name for it here, I think, is the duodenum, or the duodenum. But the duodenum is that part from the stomach which could hold acidic food, acidic chyme. That part of the stomach here, duodenum, would start getting that green liquid from the gallbladder and the pancreas, and that is where the process of true carbohydrate digestion should begin. That is where the process of true a lot of protein digestion should begin, also fat digestion. So the stomach here does something that is called preparation for digestion. So for protein, preparation for digestion means we are taking the role for protein. So protein is normally like this, coiled up. So in the stomach, in the acidic stomach, it becomes uncoiled, and a scissors called pepsin comes and cut it up. So we have little bits of protein like this. You may have one or two molecules of protein, which is now called amino acids. This is what we are behind, and that is in the stomach. The acidic stomach does that for us. Now when it comes to minerals, what we call minerals, so the minerals are bounded in something called phytic acids. When the acidic stomach comes along, a very good acidic stomach, and we'll talk about the tricks and trade in that. So what you want here is the nutrient here. This could be magnesium, this could be calcium, this could be any of the trace mineral, right? But it is in this thing called phytic acid, a bond that holds the true mineral, and we call it today an anti-nutrient. But you are truly behind the red one, and so the stomach acid comes here and breaks out this and releases it, and so the red one gets out, and that is how we say the nutrient is now bioavailable. Now this here is not bioavailable. So you drink curcumin, which is from turmeric, and you would say you are drinking it just to get curcumin water. It's not bioavailable. When you put curcumin in something like pepperine, which is from the black pepper, what we are doing, we are breaking out this white thing outside. So that is what we are doing to release the curcumin from the black pepper. So these are the little tricks we need to learn, and holding on to this course, you'll understand how we could use the information from our body to do everything to safeguard our life going forward. So today in our metabolic classroom for the Caribbean people, we have reached here, which is called the duodenum in terms of digestion. We have understood that if you eat carbohydrates based diet, 6 to 7 days, high carb diet, especially refined carbohydrates, and you by time now you start asking yourself, well, what is refined carbohydrates? We end up lowering the pH from 1.1 to 2.5, which is appropriate pH for a stomach, to something like 3, between 3 to even 6, which is very risky for many reasons. Again, stomach acidity is 1, to sterilize and kill. I would prefer kill pathogens. 2, what is the next one? To uncoil the protein. 3, to activate the pepsin, which is the scissors to cut down the protein into little parts. 4, to activate intrinsic factor for B12. And 5, we also need extraction of minerals. So these 5 important things of stomach acidity is compromised once you are on a high carbohydrates diet, specifically refined carbohydrates, RC. The RC is a big risk. RC, refined carbohydrate, leads us to have lower stomach acidity, means we are compromising each of these here, so we run ourselves into this. Now again, there are many people who would start paying attention to themselves and start saying, my high carbohydrates, what we call the bread-based diet, which largely would have come from what is called vegetarianism, the bread-based diet or the flour-based diet, because we would not have been so conscious when we were vegetarians eating so-called plants with bread. Everything is bread, whether, well, flour, but bread, roti, skin bread, whatever you eat in the Caribbean. You could start tracing it back. You would start realizing how much of the issues you would have with your stomach: burping, bloating, eating this and your belly full or full of wind or whatever, gas, diarrhea, constipation. The load of issues that you would have comes because of these things, and these things are largely coming from, number one, we did not kill the pathogens that were entering that are entering with our food, because we have messed up pH 1 to 2.5. Now, closing this chapter means we need to know strategies how to reintroduce pH 1 to 2.5, but we also need to know when we introduce back acidity in our stomach, we are not naturally killing our bad bacteria, because they already, as I said, they already did what? They already knew that you would become wise. And so here is Mr. H. pylori or Mr. E. coli or whoever is living there. They did not stay exposed. They built around themselves this layer, slippery layer, just like when you go to the river stone, you see this slippery thing on the stone. It's called LPS, Lipopolysaccharides, using the same thing you give to them, glucose molecules. And so they have individually protected themselves, or community-wise they have protected themselves here with many little ones living in a community, and they have invited their other friends to come to, and that is your layer of your gut here. They are start building onto the gut layer, and this is where we have things like ulcers starting up, because the immune system start recognizing them and start shooting at them, but the bullets are bouncing off and hitting the layer of hair. So the immune system is damaging the gut by itself, because it's thinking that it could beat them, but he's seeing them and it cannot touch them because they are in the home called the LPS layer, or the biofilm layer. And so we need to think about this. So in whatever treatment you are getting, when you get to your doctor, this is a consideration you need to make with your doctor. If you are treating any bacterial infection that you think you have, you need to ask the doctor to consider LPS treatment or LPS strategies, which means you would need to have something like NaC, chitosan, zeolite clay, bentonite clay, activated charcoal. These here are known. NaC to me is well known. I am also researching into what other substances that are very good for breaking down biofilm. So there is a difference between killing the fungus or the bacteria, which is what we are very good at. We have good antibacterial, we have herbal antibacterial, antimicrobials, we have good antifungal and antibacterial drugs from the doctor. We could name them on the left fingers. We have a lot of other antimicrobials from different places. The challenge is they are targeting the bacteria, but what happens? The bacteria is already hiding inside its own LPS. So we need something to break down the LPS. We need a really good substance to break down the LPS, so that our antifungal and our antibacterial and our antimicrobial herbs could hit the bacteria. So in this doing, we would look at this in today's lecture, and that is what we want to focus on: how we break down LPS and the importance of treating with LPS as we go forward. Thank you for viewing this lesson today, and we would come back into the second lesson in a moment.